Beacon Press Audio presents Tell Her Story, Eleanor Bumpurs and the Police Killing That Galvanized New York City by LaShawn Harris. This audiobook is narrated by Chilton. Published by Beacon Press Audio, 2025. Introduction. Tremendous socioeconomic and political and cultural challenges and developments characterize 1980s New York. Decay and disorder, crime and violence, extreme wealth and poverty, and the emergence of acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, AIDS, and crack cocaine, a highly potent and inexpensive drug, dogged the city. Equally important, a new musical genre and aesthetic took the city that never sleeps by storm. Emerging out of working-class South Bronx neighborhoods and vibrant block and house parties, hip-hop culture enthralled the city and nation. Created by Clive Cool Herc Campbell, Cindy Campbell, and other racially and ethnically diverse teenagers and young adults, hip-hop birthed a wildly influential category of music, dance, fashion, and art. Delivering rhythmic speech and poetry over turntables, sound mixers, electronic instruments, and microphones, rap artists such as Sharon MC Sharrock Green and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five offered listeners engaging commentary on politics, poverty, and urban life in President Ronald Reagan's America. MC's bold verses and imaginative metaphors about city living also provided insight on a harmful and deathly epidemic affecting Black life, police violence. And throughout the 1980s, many lyricists rapped about one of New York City's most horrific acts of police abuse. This incident happened on October 29, 1984, 3 weeks after my 10th birthday, and a few days before Halloween. In 1984, my childhood friends and I couldn't wait for Halloween. We spent a lot of time planning, selecting plastic costumes from the local Woolworth store, and discussing which neighborhoods to visit, depending on who had the best candy. There were plenty of places to frequent around our Bronx neighborhood on 174th Street and University Avenue, also known as the Morris Heights community. With our parents monitoring us, we could stroll into the neighborhood bodegas and supermarkets or walk across University Avenue to New York City Housing Authority's NYCHA Sedgwick Houses, a residential development of 7 14-story red brick high-rises. That year, our Halloween plans were interrupted. On Monday, October 29, 1984, a brutal tragedy struck my community. That morning, white New York Police Department, NYPD officer Stephen Sullivan fatally shot 66-year-old disabled grandmother and Sedgwick Houses tenant Eleanor Bumpurs during an eviction proceeding. A few days after Eleanor's killing, University Avenue erupted into chaos. City officials and police investigating the shooting crowded the street in Sedgwick Houses. Local reporters and cameramen swarmed the area, hoping to interview anyone who heard the gunshots, knew Eleanor, or lived in or near Sedgwick Houses. Concerned about the large police and media presence in the neighborhood, some parents refused to allow their children to trick-or-treat on University Avenue. That year, my friends and I trick-or-treated in our 5-story apartment building, collecting now and later candies, Snickers bars, and other sugary treats from our neighbors. Although my friends and I achieved the goal of receiving candy, this wasn't the Halloween we'd planned for. Primarily concerned about missing Halloween festivities, my 10-year-old self was clueless about what happened to Eleanor. I vaguely remember family and community members discussing her killing. Talking with my parents decades later about Eleanor's killing, they remembered neighborhood folks saying, "The lady across the street was murdered. The cops shot her down right in her apartment. Why police evicting folks now?" The Bumpurs killing became an intense topic of conversation around the neighborhood. My neighbors were outraged. They were saddened, and they demanded answers to important questions, including, how could police kill an elderly and disabled woman? And when police and NYPD officials refused to answer those questions, my neighbors raised hell. They poured onto Bronx streets, staging candlelight vigils and protest rallies in front of Eleanor's apartment building and at the nearby police precinct. And they expressed their sorrow for Eleanor and her family in media interviews with popular New York journalists like New York Daily News columnist Jimmy Breslin. Humanizing Eleanor, some Sedgwick houses tenants and other neighborhood residents described to reporters how they occasionally spotted her sitting on the park bench outside her apartment building, and how she routinely sat at her living room windowsill, observing community happenings. Many described a quiet woman who kept to herself and minded her business. Others described a cantankerous woman who talked to herself and carried a butcher knife. I didn't know Eleanor, nor do I recall seeing the silver-haired grandmother walking through the neighborhood. As a teenager and young adult, I forgot about Eleanor and the upheaval that her killing ignited in the Morris Heights community. While Eleanor faded from my mind, New Yorkers never forgot about the grandmother. Her death touched residents. Newspaper images of her and her grieving family inspired them. In the days, months, and even years after her death, city folks advocated for Eleanor. They demanded legal justice for her. They wanted police accountability. And as the city underwent massive socioeconomic and political changes throughout the early to mid-1980s, they kept the story of her death in the public's eye. The Bumpurs killing became a cause célèbre, going viral 1980s style. Eleanor's name could be read in newspapers like the New York Times and New York Amsterdam News, and heard on television, radio news broadcasts, and daytime TV shows, such as The Phil Donahue Show. New Yorkers uttered her name during Sunday morning sermons in university lecture halls, neighborhood beauty salons, and barber shops, and while waiting for city buses and trains. They affixed her image and name to protest placards and apartment building structures. Some Black, Latinx, and white writers, singers, street artists, and filmmakers, including Audre Lorde and Spike Lee, dedicated poems, songs, graffiti art, and films to Eleanor. Eleanor's death inspired Lorde's moving 1986 poem, For the Record, in memory of Eleanor Bumpurs, which connects Eleanor's killing to the assassination of Indira Gandhi, the first and only female Prime Minister of India. Gandhi was murdered in her home several days after Eleanor on October 31, 1984. In 1986, Brooklyn filmmaker Spike Lee referenced Eleanor's death in his first feature film, She's Gotta Have It. A newspaper clipping on the Bumpurs case appears in main character Nola Darling's wall collage. 3 years later, Lee dedicated his provocative Oscar-nominated film, Do the Right Thing, centered on 1980s New York life and culture, to the Bumpurs families and other Black and Hispanic families that lost loved ones to police violence. Eleanor's name is even mentioned in the film. After several NYPD officers in the movie fatally choked the character Radio Raheem, angry community members yelled, "They did it again! Just like Michael Stewart, murder! Eleanor Bumpurs, murder!" Likewise, 1980s and 90s hip-hop artists such as Black Star, X-Clan, Ghostface Killah, Cool G Rap, and Professor Griff authored lyrics about Eleanor's killing. Eleanor became a symbol for racially and ethnically diverse working-class New Yorkers. Her eviction and killing exposed long-standing urban issues, including housing inequities, police violence, and municipal disinvestment. And while Eleanor was the mother of 5 daughters and 2 sons, and grandmother to at least 10 children, many New Yorkers, embracing the African diasporic belief in fictive kinship, viewed her as
Sample complete. Ready to continue?